Life has a way of throwing unexpected situations your way, I thought to myself that evening, sitting alone in a cramped hotel room with Gary, my stepson. My husband, Logan, had been away in another city for months, and the strain was starting to wear on me. Of course, I missed him, but it wasn't just his absence. It was his indifference, his failure to care that truly ate at me. Lonely nights had become unbearable. How could I have known that asking Gary to take me to see his dad would land us in this predicament, stranded in a tiny hotel room with just one bed? I never imagined what was about to unfold, but let me tell you everything. From the very beginning, every little detail. You'll find the ending far more surprising than you might think. That morning as I left the house, I caught a quick look at myself in the mirror. I was stressed, sure, but I still looked good. Despite Logan's absence and the loneliness it brought, I still felt alive, still desirable. Yet even that sense of vitality wasn't enough anymore. It couldn't fill the void. In the kitchen, Gary was finishing his breakfast when I called out from behind him. "You're starting college at the end of the summer, I know, but you really need to get better at driving. Come on, take me to your dad," I said. He looked up at me with that familiar, playful grin he always had. Gary was a sweet kid, quick-witted and fun, but he could be a bit of a troublemaker. "Sure thing, stepmom," he replied with a smirk. "But only if you tell Dad to get me a better car for the summer." "We'll see," I shot back, brushing off his teasing and urging him to hurry. In truth, I just wanted to get the trip over with, though I had no idea what was about to happen. About 2 hours into the drive, I was sitting in the back seat, idly scrolling on my phone while Gary hummed along to random songs on the radio, throwing out silly jokes that only he found funny. Suddenly there was a loud, awful sound, a hiss, and the car sputtered to a stop. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep calm. "I think it broke down," Gary muttered, steering the car to the side of the road, clearly irritated. And just like that, we were stranded in the middle of nowhere. My phone barely had a signal, and there wasn't a single person around to help. For the next 2 hours, we argued, called every mechanic we could find, and tried unsuccessfully to fix the car. Finally, we had to face the reality that our only option was to spend the night at the nearest motel. At the motel reception, I stood behind Gary while he spoke to the clerk, feeling a mix of frustration and dread. If Logan hears about this, he's going to lose it, I thought. But strangely, I realized it didn't matter to me as much as it should have. Deep down, I felt like this night was going to change everything. Before the story gets any wilder, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. You'll want to see how this ends. Show some love in the comments and with those likes. When we finally opened the motel room door, all my expectations were crushed. The room was tiny, barely big enough to move around in. One bed, a small nightstand, and a flickering light overhead that made the place look even dingier. The ceiling felt oppressively low, the air conditioning barely worked, and the single tiny window overlooked the parking lot. "This is it?" I muttered in disappointment. Gary followed me in, laughing. "What were you expecting? A 5-star resort?" "Relax, stepmom. It's just one night," he said in that same teasing tone, his grin as infuriating as ever. It annoyed me, but at the same time, something about his carefree attitude stirred a feeling inside me I couldn't quite explain. "This heat is unbearable," I said, wiping the back of my neck. "I need a shower, or I'm going to faint." "Go for it," Gary replied, flopping onto the bed with an easygoing shrug. "This is your kingdom, Carmen. Do whatever makes you comfortable." I glanced at him briefly, noticing his lean frame and the mix of boyishness and charm in his features. I quickly brushed the thought away. He was Logan's son, after all, my stepson. Shaking off the strange feeling, I stepped into the bathroom and closed the door. I stood for a moment, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My hair clung to my damp skin from the heat, but I still looked good. That spark was still there. Turning on the shower, I let the water run over me, hoping it would wash away the tangled mess of emotions that had been building up inside. I reminded myself that I was 47 years old, while Gary wasn't a child anymore either. At 22, he was preparing to start college, and here we were, stuck together in a cramped hotel room for a couple of days. The thought unsettled me, yet it also sparked something I couldn't quite name. Logan's image flashed in my mind. "Logan, I wanted to surprise you, to visit you, to be close to you. And now, I'm here, in a hotel room with your son, feeling completely uncertain." Steam filled the small bathroom, the warmth easing my body even as my mind raced. Gary's carefree smile and relaxed demeanor stirred emotions I hadn't anticipated. Standing under the shower's flow, I couldn't predict where this strange feeling might lead. but I knew something inside me was shifting. Later, hoping to clear my head, I decided to go downstairs for dinner. I slipped on a light flowing dress that suited the warm weather and helped me feel more composed, as though shaking off the tension. The hotel's restaurant was modest, yet inviting, fitting for such a small place. I ordered a simple meal and a glass of wine, hoping it would help me unwind. Outside, the sun had dipped below the horizon, and the streetlights cast a soft glow around the hotel. Even as I sat there, I couldn't stop my thoughts from wandering back to the room. What's Gary doing right now? I wondered. Knowing his restless energy, he was probably bored in that tiny space. Yet his laid-back attitude, so easy and untroubled, was driving me to distraction in ways I couldn't explain. When I finished my wine and meal, I slowly climbed the stairs, dragging out the moments before returning to the room. Opening the door, I was caught off guard by what I saw. Gary had taken a shower and was now lying on the bed, fast asleep, wearing only a loosely tied robe. His damp hair clung to his forehead and his robe had slipped open, revealing his lean, toned frame. A faint smile played on his lips, as though he were dreaming. My heart raced. It was the last thing I'd expected to see. For a moment, I stood frozen in the doorway, unsure of what to do. Embarrassment flooded me, but my eyes seemed unwilling to look away. "What are you doing, Carmen?" I scolded myself internally. "That's Logan's son." Yet my gaze lingered on the part of his robe that had shifted further aside, and I felt a warmth rise within me. The small room didn't help. With only one bed and no other place to sleep, the idea of spending the night in the chair seemed unbearable in the stifling heat. I stepped quietly into the room, Gary's slow, steady breathing filling the silence. Taking a deep breath, I tried to calm myself, but my thoughts were in chaos. "It's just one night," I muttered under my breath. "This doesn't mean anything. I came to surprise Logan, and now I'm stuck here. Be rational, Carmen. Get a grip." I approached the bed and sat at its edge, my eyes falling on Gary. His innocent, peaceful expression only made my tangled emotions harder to handle. As the night deepened, I eventually lay down beside him, trying to keep my distance. In the middle of the night, a faint noise stirred me from sleep. Barely opening my eyes, I glanced around and noticed Gary shifting on the bed. He seemed half awake, running his fingers through his hair and rubbing the back of his neck. Though I feigned sleep, I couldn't stop myself from watching him. Then, I realized he was looking at me. My heart began pounding in my chest, but I kept still, pretending to be asleep. Gary slowly reached for the belt of his robe, loosening it as it slipped from his shoulders, exposing more of his defined physique. Every subtle movement of his muscles sent a strange heat coursing through me. I tried to remain composed, but something inside me felt electrified. As he moved to the wardrobe and pulled out a pair of shorts, he kept glancing back at me, as though trying to figure out if I was awake. His stolen looks only heightened my awareness of him, and though I tried to hide my emotions, I couldn't deny the intensity of the moment. After putting on his shorts, Gary didn't return to the bed. Instead, he sat in the chair in the corner, watching me intently. His gaze was both unsettling and stirring, evoking something deep and indescribable within me. I kept my eyes shut, continuing my active sleep, but I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep it up. Finally, unable to bear the tension any longer, I sat up. Our eyes met, and I forced myself to speak without letting my voice tremble. "Gary, you're making me excited," I admitted, the words hanging in the air between us. In that instant, I knew everything was about to change. Gary's expression shifted, his eyes flickering with a mix of emotions before he exhaled deeply. "I don't know, Carmen," he began, his voice low but steady. "Ever since Dad left, we've been sharing the same house. And the more time I've spent with you, the more I've realized how much I admire you. Sometimes I just can't hide how I feel. Right now, this feels unreal, like a dream." His confession caught me completely off guard, stirring emotions I wasn't prepared for. His gaze held mine, filled with a raw honesty and passion that left me utterly captivated. "I need to get up early tomorrow to fix the car," he said, his tone as if trying to convince himself to focus on something else. But even as he spoke, his eyes didn't stray from mine. "Right now, though, I can't seem to stop looking at you." "Carmen, I've never felt anything like this before," Gary said, his voice low, his gaze intense. My heart pounded as I moved to the edge of the bed, lowering myself into the chair directly in front of him. Our eyes locked, and the air between us was thick with tension. We didn't need words. The energy we shared was enough. For a moment, we just sat in silence until I pursed my lips slightly and met his eyes with a mixture of curiosity and challenge. "Gary?" I began slowly, my voice deliberate. Are we talking about the same thing? His stare deepened, filled with an unspoken intensity, as though he wanted to feel the moment rather than describe it. He didn't respond aloud, but his expression said everything. That's when I knew there was no turning back. As I gazed into his eyes, a mix of courage and undeniable longing rose within me. The blend of hesitation and desire I saw in him only fueled my resolve. Taking a steadying breath, I broke the silence again, my voice firm but calm. When I walked into the room earlier, I said, holding his attention, you were asleep. Your robe was slightly open, and I couldn't stop looking at you. It affected me more than I expected. We can't ignore this. We both know that. As my words lingered between us, I stood up slowly, his gaze following my every move, his breathing quickening. Excitement surged through me as my fingers found the sash of my dress. I untied it deliberately, hearing the subtle shift in his breath with each motion. I think, I whispered, my voice dropping lower, we need to balance things out. I reached for the zipper at the back of my dress, sliding it down. The fabric slipped from my shoulders and pooled at my feet, the cool air brushing against my skin, intensifying the heat within me. Gary's expression shifted, his eyes reflecting surprise, admiration, and a pull he couldn't resist. The quiet between us felt electric, like an unbreakable bond. Our breaths seemed to merge as I took a step closer to him. Now, I murmured, my voice barely audible, let's see if we're really on the same page. Gary's eyes stayed fixed on mine, his face a mix of determination and passion. Suddenly, he stood, his focus unwavering. He turned on the light, bathing the room in a soft glow, then walked over to lock the door. My heartbeat quickened as time seemed to slow, leaving just the two of us in the moment. When he moved toward me, his eyes searched mine, and the invisible pull between us grew stronger. His hands found my waist, and the warmth of his touch sent a shiver through me. Without saying a word, he leaned closer, his gaze dropping to my lips. I didn't resist, I couldn't. Everything about this felt natural, as though it was meant to be. When his lips finally met mine, the tension I'd been holding on to dissolved. His kiss was slow, exploratory, and filled with an undeniable intensity. My hands instinctively rested on his shoulders, feeling their strength and warmth. The space between us vanished as our breaths mingled, and all the emotions we'd kept buried came rushing out. Gary's youthful energy collided with the depth of passion I had carried for years. That moment marked the beginning of something new, something both exhilarating and terrifying. Exhausted yet elated, I let myself fall back onto the bed. My breathing was uneven, and my mind raced. My foot brushed against the fabric of my discarded dress on the floor, and I felt Gary's gaze on me. His presence carried a quiet, magnetic energy. A moment later, he bent to pick up the dress, his fingers grazing the spot where my foot had been. Even that simple touch sent a jolt through me. As he held the dress for a second, hesitation flickered in his eyes before determination replaced it. He set the dress aside, then climbed onto the bed with deliberate care. Each movement revealed the pull he felt, equal parts excitement and restraint. As he drew closer, my heart raced faster, and my breathing deepened. The distance between us disappeared, and it felt as though everything had reached a tipping point. Lying there, overwhelmed by a mix of emotions, I looked at the ceiling, then back at Gary. He brushed his hair back from his forehead, his face flushed, and his expression filled with happiness, passion, and excitement. His unsteady breaths mirrored the whirlwind inside me. You've brought me to this point, Gary, I thought, feeling a strange sense of gratitude for the broken-down car that had brought us to this hotel. I'll never forget this place, Gary said, his voice trembling, every word heavy with emotion. His gaze stayed on me, though his hands shook slightly, his body tense with restrained energy. I don't want Dad to sell that car now, he added, his voice soft. After those words, he let himself collapse beside me, his breathing labored as he closed his eyes. I couldn't speak. I was too drained. My legs trembled, and I hadn't even noticed when I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Gary returned with the car repaired, ready for us to pick up Logan and head to the city. Regret and confusion mingled inside me, but so did a strange excitement. Every glance at Gary, every subtle move, affected me in ways I couldn't explain. Everything was tangled and complicated, and I still didn't know what would happen next. But one thing was clear. This journey had changed everything. If you've stayed with me this far, I know you've been captivated by my story. Don't miss what's coming next. Hit follow, turn on notifications, and share your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear what you think.